Hello.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, or if you are new here, welcome. I am the Wolfman, and I'm proud to be joined today by one of the writers of the fantastic original horror film that just released this month on Shudder, just a few days ago, actually.
Yep.
And on Shudder, and his name is Charlie Pieper.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's cool to be here.
Yeah. So obviously we were talking before this. I thought this movie was another blast. It gave me the kind of 80s kind of vibes of like Evil Dead and such like that. One of those fun kind of movies. And this is definitely gonna be one I watch like every Halloween season or so, every other Halloween season. It's an absolute blast. So first off, I thought we would start by just telling people what the movie is about and why you think they should see it.
It is about a struggling would-be prog rock musician living in a shitty, rundown Los Angeles apartment. He's been trying to finish his album for 3 years, but really the problem is him. He's in his own way. He's up his own butt. He's in his own head. He's arguably an unlikable main character, yet maybe relatable at the same time. He's an exaggeration of my worst elements of my creative self when I was younger, as well as Jonah Ray Rodriguez, who plays him in the film. Long story short, he lives with his long-suffering girlfriend. They eke out an existence in the dregs of LA, but then the loudest, craziest, most monstrous neighbor moves in next door, played by none other than the legendary Alex Winter, in full face, chest, arms, hands prosthetic designed by the incredible Gabe Bartalos and Bill Corso. He's loud. He's horrible. He plays EDM all night. He drives William more or less insane. And William hates confrontation, but he decides to try to finally man up, go over there, try to talk to him. And one thing leads to another, and it's not much of a spoiler because it's literally the plot of the film and in the trailer. But Vlad accidentally dies in front of William. And in his panic, instead of doing something good or clever, he decides to cut up the body to make it easier to dispose of. And one thing leads to another. Vlad comes back as an obsessive, guilt-trip ghost corpse zombie, interpreted how you will. And more accidental manslaughtering happens until they all end up trying to, maybe, just maybe, become the backing band that helps William finish his album. A very typical story we see all the time in films. Like this is
yeah, totally. No, I was actually just talking to a friend of mine recently. I looked at all the calendar of like the big release films coming out this year, and I was sad to see there's only like 3 original big release films this year. And so like seeing stuff like this is so refreshing because you actually are getting like original stories out there.
I appreciate that, and it's that aspect made this very hard to get made, to be honest with you. I started writing the first drafts of this for the director Josh Forbes literally a decade ago. Okay?
Oh wow.
So,
yeah,
it's been a process.
I actually that was gonna be, let's see, one of my questions here, which was
where it all began.
Pretty much just where it all began.
It began where I'm sitting, to be honest.
Just like how the story came to be, pretty much.
Sure. I started complaining to Josh Forbes, the director, one day because I had a very loud, abrasive neighbor. And Josh Forbes, who lived more or less in the same neighborhood as I, he also had a really scary, terrifying neighbor. And we started just kind of pooling out our frustrations onto the page. We thought it would be better to kill them in a script than in reality, just because of the murder and all. And it became a thing. We were 2 friends. He had done more professional music video directing. I had done more writing. So it was a handshake agreement. Like, well, you write this for me and maybe we get it made someday. And that was where it all began, with just real life, relatable neighbor trauma, horror, what have you. And we just cranked it to 11 over the ensuing decade, and 2 other writers coming involved, let alone Jonah and Alex Winter, who were also producers on it and helped blur and blend and warp the script into even further reaches of comedy.
Oh wow, because and the prog rock thing, when it comes to that, were you always like
So
a fan of prog rock, or?
I'm not to burst the bubble of the internet, but I'm more of a post-punk art rock guy. My favorite band is Sparks, but like,
nice.
I love the Mars Volta, Ween, They Might Be Giants, Oingo Boingo. The Fiery Furnaces, and last but not least, I've been a fan of the band Man Man since 2005. When Josh and I did the initial sizzle reel trailer for this, we included Man Man music in it, and this was maybe 9 years ago. And then not only did the lead singer of Man Man end up scoring the film along with Brett, the guitarist for Man Man, he plays Caleb Bang Jensen, the irritating asshole musician in it. So it's been awesome for me because now I have a 69 track long soundtrack for my movie that's on Spotify and Amazon and blah, 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 by my favorite band. I've been listening to it nonstop. Probably more than half the streams on the internet right now are just me. It's great.
Oh, that is awesome. And when you were coming up with this idea, you said it was a long process. It was a lengthy process. What was your reaction like when a streaming service like Shudder accepted to acquire this?
I mean, we have to thank Shudder entirely for this. When we started writing it, I started writing for Josh and the other writers came on, we shopped it around town, LA, repeatedly, a few different drafts, and it was always rejected and it was turned down. The sort of notes like, this is too gross to be funny, or this is too silly to be scary. We got a lot of, this is like the 80s, and the 80s aren't popular. Nobody likes the 80s. There are no films or television about the 80s. I started writing this before Stranger Things had even been shot, right? So they were correct at the time in terms of the industry, but we kept pushing forward. And then once we got Alex Winter on board and Shudder heard about that, it was like overnight, they're like, we're paying for this. It's a Shudder original. They funded it entirely. So praise be to Shudder. And they let us make the movie. They didn't, fiddle around with it. And now that it's out, they're promoting it. They created these amazing posters and character art, and they've been a blast. I'm so happy to be on Shudder. I've been watching Shudder on my TV here for years. I've loved their programming, originals and old stuff. And hell yeah. If Shudder didn't exist, I would say over half of all indie horror filmmaking, where would we go? We'd have nothing, because the industry is sort of semi-collapsed.
But I feel like the horror genre is, finally making a comeback now, and especially like with films like this, I feel like they are finally. And I'm glad the Shudder gave you the free reign to do like what you wanted on this film. And if it was like a major studio, a lot of times it's like
I don't think it would have happened with a major studio, or it would have been, they would have been like, every character in this is cranked to 11 and unlikable. What are you doing? And it's like, because it's a goofy comedy. Like, you either like it or you don't, and that's explicitly baked into the metaphor of the film. And that's very much Josh Forbes, the director. He wears his heart on his sleeve. The heart might be pumping blood all over him, but it's heartfelt. And I feel that too. And, when it takes a decade to make a film and it slowly builds out because friends of friends get involved, and then people you grew up watching and love get involved, this film felt like getting the band together, which is, again, what the film is about. So I don't know. I'll tell you, like, if magically my early draft had come out 10 years ago, which it wouldn't have happened, and it didn't. But if it had, it would not have been as funny or silly or light. It would have been darker and bleaker and way less fun. So I don't want every project I do to take a decade, my God. But this one is definitely better for the long gestation period.
And that kind of is a good segue into another question I have is, I saw on Letterboxd that you have 2 short films you've wrote, or written, and I was just wondering, like, as someone who's a writer myself, I've written a couple short films and such here and there. It's like, I've never written a feature yet, but what's the process like from writing a short film to a feature? What do you prefer? Is it more difficult? Like,
they're all tough. I've written and directed a ton of short films. There's only a couple that I think are artsy fartsy caliber enough to put on Letterboxd. If you went to my website, you could
okay.
spend a whole day watching my back catalog. I don't recommend it, but those two shorts I'm quite proud of. You know, I went to film college. I went to Emerson in Boston. I graduated in 2009. I've been in LA ever since, and it's been really tough. I was focused for a long time on stop motion animation solely, and I couldn't really get a foothold in there, so I moved to live action. But stop motion is a love of mine, and you know, the stop motion tunnel portal credit sequence, that's entirely my brain baby. I wrote that into the very first draft
too, with the skeleton in here too. So, yeah.
The lead animator, the claymation artist Rich Zim, who did that clay intro credits, he was one of the lead animators on The Nightmare Before Christmas. Okay, like legendary, and I'm so happy. I've worked with him twice now, but I think you got to make shorts. You got to do your best. They got to succeed or fail. But from shorts, you kind of learn your way around a set and how to write, and then just write features. I'm currently sitting on approximately 7 feature screenplays I've written within the last decade that I hope to get out and direct myself. Hopefully the attention from Destroy All Neighbors will open that door to me more. One of which is an extended, reworked version of my largest scale short film to date, which is a very dark, psychosexual, horrible body horror thing called Malacastraca. You can find that online. Gabe Bartalos, who did Destroy All Neighbors, he also did the puppets for this short. It is about as far removed from Destroy All Neighbors as possible. Oof. I like extremes. I like things that are extremely funny or silly.
Oh, yeah.
Or extremely fucked up and dark. So if you want to really give your brain tonal whiplash, watch them after each other, but maybe don't.
And then also having total fucked up, but also total just funny and, you know, wacky too. It's like that can be that, because this movie is both parts fucked up, but also just kind of like wild and wacky too.
We don't skimp on the gore. The gore is gross. It's not realistic.
Oh yeah, but no, it doesn't need to be. It adds to the elements. And that kind of was another leeway into another question I have for you have you always been a fan of the horror genre, or is that just like
baby boy? I came out of the womb holding a copy of Fangoria. It was very difficult for my mother, and she complains about it to me. No, I was obsessed with monsters from an early age, and no one knows why. My parents are creatives. They're theater people. They met through community theater. My mom was a classically trained ballerina turned writer-director on the stage, and my dad was a set designer. That's how they met. A beautiful meet cute. I can never top that in my own life, though I try. Well, that's another story. My personal life is delightful right now. I'm very excited about that. But they just let me watch horror movies, and I don't know. I loved monsters. I became fixated. I could send you links to things. Some of my earliest home movies are horror comedies I shot with my parents in my living room on VHS. The first one was Murders at the Halloween Hotel. The second was Revenge of the Halloween Hotel. And yeah, they supported me, and I'm the luckiest kid in the world. And they flew out to the premiere of this from New Jersey. They came to LA. They got their seats. We all got dressed up. They saw it at the Aero Theater in Santa Monica. Yeah, I loved horror from an age so early, I didn't even know what death was, right? It was just this abstract, wow, adults get to make monsters for a living? And then I grew and kind of realized things, and life became a horror film for me for a long time. I had a lot of medical issues when I was younger. You know, I love David Cronenberg, but living in a David Cronenberg film through my 20s was, you know, I wouldn't recommend it. But I'm on the other side of that now, and I do have a script based off that too called Dermis, which imagine all your most awkward moments of freshman year of college mixed with Cronenberg's The Fly. So.
That sounds right up my alley. I was actually going to ask like what specific 80s like horror comedies and stuff inspired this idea for you guys.
I mean, the influences, we wear them on our sleeves boldly like shiny cufflinks that the eye is drawn to, and some people might say it's too blatant, but fuck them. We made our movie. You watched it. You're not getting those minutes back. Thank you for the view. American Werewolf in London. I love that film as much as I don't like John Landis or his son. Let's just leave it there. That's a whole nother thing. He's a murderers and maniacs. But That film is, everyone who worked on it was so good. It's so tight. The editing is incredible. Griffin Dunn is a hero of mine. It's so funny. I mean, right there, your murder victims come back as snarky ghosts pestering you. Like, that's that. And we kind of made them into a band, and the prog rock we hopefully cranked it up a little. But that was honestly American Werewolf in London. It was one of the first horror films I saw as a kid, and the rest is history. But then, of course, Return of the Living Dead, Eleanor, as she becomes Skelenor, as we called her, this puppet burnt thing. Yeah, it's a lot of 80s horror. And of course, Freaked was my favorite film as a kid. Okay.
Oh, yes.
So the fact I wrote something that ended up appealing to Alex Winter enough to come on board and produce it and play the antagonist, I'm in hog heaven. Then there were other films we drew from. Josh Forbes, his initial pitch to Jonah Ray Rodriguez was, I want you to star in a film where you're trapped in a world that's a mixture of Delicatessen and Evil Dead 2. So,
hey, yeah, I mean that was I saw like Evil Dead in there. I definitely saw a bunch of fun stuff. I even saw today someone pointed out to me Barton Fink.
Yeah. Oh man, I love Barton Fink.
Yeah, I was like,
the look of the hallway is very Barton Fink. And to that Coen Brothers credits, lesser visually inspirational, but Jonah Ray and Jonah Ray Rodriguez and Josh Forbes talked about Inside Llewyn Davis a lot, because that's another film about a struggling musician who's a piece of shit and his own worst enemy, and he kind of deserves it. But you also, well, again, a lot of the online chatter has been like, Jonah Ray's character is the most unlikable person I've ever seen. I'm like, oh shit, it's like, wait, do I suck? Am I the worst? Because it's like, me, but exaggerated. But it's all intentional. Yeah. That's also part of it. You either jive with this kind of thing or you don't. And I think a lot of it is, if you are creative in any way, maybe you see a reflection of your obsession in it. But if you're not, there's some people who've reviewed it. I've seen a couple YouTube video reviews, and it's like 3 muscle-bound bros, and they're like, that fucking piece of shit wimp-ass motherfucker. I love Vlad, though. And then they're like, yeah, Vlad is cool. I'm laughing. I'm like,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
To each their own. But look, I've been in the short film making world, the mines in the bottom of the depths of hell for over a decade, where the fact that I'm getting any reviews, good or bad, I am loving it. Bring it on. It's crazy. Crazy to me that people can see this.
And I'm the same way, honestly, because like I've gotten to that point now where finally I'm starting to get haters, and I say finally, where it's like people are coming in there and they're giving me the hate comments on YouTube videos and stuff like that, and I'm like, and I just brush it off. I'm like saying thank you. This actually helps the channel that you commented. I'm like
that. I mean, yes, and again, especially like, YouTube wise, for sure.
And it's just, and so it's one of those things like, so you don't because I know a lot of people who love this film, but I also know like it's not going to be for everyone. So
no, it's not.
So those kind of negative reviews don't really get like.
No, I've been through it a lot. When I was a little young, like that short Malchus Straka came out 5, 6, 7 years ago now, and that was it was my personal brain baby. I was the writer director. It took half a decade to get that short made because of my medical issues, and I wanted to have enough money to pay my crew properly. That took a long time, a lot of fundraising. So when that came out and there were some vicious reviews, those hurt me at the time because there was barely any reviews and it's more pointed. But no, look, dude, I'm 37 now. And like this thing took a decade to make and it came out. Like I have been laughing the most at some of the really mean letterbox reviews. Like it's delightful.
Oh yeah, no, and as long as you're proud of it, that's what matters the most. You and your crew, if y'all are proud of it.
Oh, we're having the time of our life. My God, my old college friends who heard me complain about the real guy a decade ago, like I'm seeing it on the big screen with them, and they're looking at me and they're looking at Jonah, and they're like, how did you do? Like, this is insane. Because he kind of looks like me, and he's playing exaggerated nervous tics that he kind of picked up from me and him. And yes, I do have tiny ear canals. That's true. That's a medical thing. So for the record.
No, but you talked about Alex Winter coming on
Mm,
board, and I'm just wondering like what that process was like getting
mhm.
the actor from Bill and Ted, The
I
Lost
know.
Boys,
Yeah.
all these fantastic movies. What that was like getting him on board.
So Jonah Ray Rodriguez got attached, I want to say 7 or 8 years ago. It was before he had done his seasons of MST3K. So, he was known in the comedy nerd meltdown scene here in LA, but it wasn't enough to swing the needle into funding. But he stayed on board, and around the time he came on is when the second writer came on, Mike Benner, a wonderful writer. He was one of the staff writers on Bob's Burgers for a long time.
Oh yeah,
He brought the prog rock. He was the one who made the character fit more Jonah's musical inclinations. And I'm sitting there like, oh shit, fucking A. Like, yeah, it was a great idea. But
oh, yeah.
again, nobody famous enough to get money. So it kind of just dwindled. I went on to work on Malika Straka. Josh Forbes went on to do his music videos, and it got resurrected by Jonah Ray during the first year of the quarantine. It was 2020. He'd become semi-friendly with Alex Winter just from being in the same neighborhood, more or less, here in town. And when Bill and Ted 3 came out, he saw that Alex Winter was doing prosthetic character work. When he saw Alex Winter as prisoner Bill in that future alternate scene, he was like, what if we asked him to be Vlad? And so he emailed him politely. Alex liked the script, but he wasn't sure at first, just because, it was a lot of work and he had to really think it over. But I want to say it was about a week later, he emailed back like, hell yeah, let's do this. I gotta be Vlad. And then Shutter bought it, like, I want to say within a couple days. So it went from 10 years almost of
Wow.
nothing to bingo bango, just like that.
Wow. And
I know.
what's interesting is he actually, and I'm not gonna necessarily, this isn't
Mhm.
really spoilers, but he technically plays two characters in the film.
Yes, he does.
I
And that
realize that
little cameo is
this is
hysterical.
yeah,
His little mannerisms and moments in that scene. He's a great character actor, way
absolutely.
more than he gets credit for. He does these really big exaggerated stuff, and that's one of his loves, but it's become because he was a child actor on Broadway back in the day. He was a classically trained stage actor, and he ended up getting into this zany, crazy 80s stuff because it was being made there and he fit. But yeah, he's like an untapped, he's a great actor, just and a wonderful
Oh
man
yeah, for
and
sure.
an angel. There would be no Destroy All Neighbors as a final made movie without him.
Oh, absolutely. And to me, he is a big part of what makes the movie because and
Yeah.
just the accent that he puts on and just everything like that. It is great. And you talked about working on this for a decade and even into 2020. Like,
Mhm.
I'm curious how COVID might have worked its way into.
So it was difficult. By the time we shot it, the vaccines had come out, but this was a tight shoot. It was only 20 days,
Oh
which, if you
wow.
know even anything about filmmaking on something with this crazy scope,
Oh
we
yeah.
started shooting it in August, and the moment we started shooting it, a 2 week long heat wave hit Los Angeles, where every day it was 100 to 110 degrees. And the entire
Oh
first
geez.
2 weeks of the shoot were all the interior apartment sets, which were sets built into a warehouse turned into a studio downtown. So it's 100 degrees. We're in a warehouse with not proper AC, let alone claustrophobic sets with the lights. And then with Alex with like 5 pounds of rubber on his face and his body and his hands, we had special cooling tents for the actors the moment cameras cut so they could rush out. It was a sweaty nightmare, but I think it added some chaotic brain damaged energy to the film, but it was a very tough shoot. I wasn't there all the time. I was there a couple days and it was wild.
Oh man. Yeah.
And yes, also everyone not on camera was wearing masks, the
Yeah.
crew. And so we did our best to be safe. We had a COVID compliance officer. I had to take a double test when I first came. It was a added hassle.
Oh man. But I mean, y'all are still able to push through it and get it made,
Mm-hmm.
and in only 20 days, which is unreal to me because when I watched this, I was telling some of my friends like y'all have to see Destroy All Neighbors. This has some of the best like visual effects I've seen in a horror movie because it's just the practical effects work and like how are y'all able to pull that off in 20 days? Like that's insane.
We had a lot of pre-production time, which helped because it got delayed by Omicron variant.
Yeah.
So Gabe Bartalos, he's this incredible effects artist. I grew up watching his stuff. He did Basket Case 2 and 3. He did Brain Damage. He did all of Matthew Barney's Cremaster Cycle. He did Leprechaun. Okay, like I loved his work. I ended up getting lucky. I was a painting assistant and an animator at his effects company in Sun Valley about a decade ago. Literally, when I was dealing with the real neighbor at night, keeping me up all night, at the daytime, I was in Gabe's shop talking to him about it and painting miniatures and stuff. And a couple of years later, when I felt my short script for Malcastrata was strong enough, I asked him if he wanted to make my crustacean babies. He said, hell yeah. So he worked on that. And I always told him, if ever I get Destroy All Neighbors off the ground, you're who we're going. And he's like, keep me posted, Charlie. Cool. Half another decade later, he designed the creatures and the looks and then helping him with the application and the painting of the prosthetics was the Academy Award winning special effects artist Bill Corso. Bill Corso has been working with Alex Winter since The Lost Boys. They were 1920?
Wow.
He was the main applicator for Freaked. He did Bill and Ted 3. Bill Corso is a delightful, wacky man. His film before Destroy All Neighbors was the new Indiana Jones movie. He literally left Indiana Jones and then worked on with us for a month. So we just having those two, like the best of their perspective horror worlds, everyone rose to their level. We had an incredible art team. Everyone went above and beyond because everyone was just so excited to be working on such a zany original project, which almost never gets funded here in Los Angeles.
Oh, that is awesome. And so I've got one more question, but I'll save that for after the Q&A portion.
Okay, sure.
But I've got some little Q&A stuff
that's so cool. This is my first ever live interview on YouTube, and it's delightful. So hi, everybody.
Oh, awesome.
Thank you for watching.
The first one that I got is from Brian Nussbaum. He's a good friend of the channel. He says, who's one actor you'd love to work with? If there was
let's see. I want to say, is it Richard E. Grant, who was in Withnell and I back in the day, the British comedian actor? I have a script. Actually, I've been obsessed with the Jeff the Talking Mongoose true story from the Isle of Man supernatural story my whole life. There was just a movie that came out based off this. I've been writing my own story based off it since I was in college, and it's a very different approach. But there's a supernatural investigator, Harry Price, who is half an actual investigator in the 30s, but half a showman. Like he'd go into a haunted house and broadcast live on the BBC4 radio for attention. And I think Richard E. Grant, pretty sure I'm saying that name right, I'm having a brain fart, he'd be amazing in it. I'd work with any actor who wants to work with me, though. Please come on down, actors. Yeah,
no, Richard E. Grant is fantastic, and he also played, like, if you're talking about like a wacky kind of comedy, he can do that really well because if you've seen Hudson Hawk, he is.
Oh, that's right. There you go. Yeah. I need to see that again. It's been a while.
He's fantastic in that movie. So
yeah,
he's a great pick. And then also JPO, we call him JPO. He's Jordan Owens, but
hello, Jordan.
He asks that he asks like how the unrecognizable makeup job on Alex Winter came to be, and just
so Josh Forbes and I, we always wanted this to be in a kind of heightened cartoony world. We thought, again, it's all from the point of view of William. We never leave. There's not a single moment where it cuts to the external view and you see just the corpses there. And that was intentional. And that's what made Alex Winter really like it. Because he was like, we never see the reality. It's all from this awkward point of view. And since William is such a full of himself, everyone he sees is an obstacle, right? Everyone in the film could have been a friend or helped him with his album if he just listened. So here comes this loud, maybe Romanian, maybe Russian. Sometimes he sounds Irish. So we wanted to exaggerate that. So from day one, Josh was like, it has to be like a Muppet or like some crazy thing. And then Alex Winter, that's his favorite thing to do, is to create characters in full prosthetics. And it almost never happens because it's a lot of work. So for him to play someone unrecognizable and then crank his voice into insane. So for the record, though, his family on his mother's side, I believe, is from Romania. So he started with a legit Romanian accent from a specific region his old ancestors come from. And then he just kind of let it go wherever. And individual viewers may decide how well or not that works for them. But for Alex, he had the time of his life doing it.
Oh yeah, and I could tell like everyone on set seemed like they had an absolute blast. And I don't say this a lot about films, and I know like, and I shun the Academy for just how they treat horror films, but I will say like after watching this, I'm like, hey, best makeup Oscar, let's do it. Come on,
I would love that. I would love that. That would be a dream. Let's put it this way. I wouldn't hold my breath for an Oscar, but at the very least, let's get some Fango Chainsaw Awards for this.
Oh yeah, Fangoria Chainsaw Award. That's possible.
The latest Fangoria article, magazine has an article about Destroy All Neighbors in it, and I've been reading Fangoria since I was a kid. So just let alone the film coming out, having a motherfucking Fangoria article.
Yeah, that was a bit of a dream.
I'm gonna have to get a second copy to like cut the pages and frame it. So, a Fangoria, if you're listening.
Oh, maybe. I mean, hey, a lot of the Shudder does Fangoria awards now. So
yeah. And I'm the son of two theater people. I have very strong latent theater kid energy. If we win an award, I will dance the dance for it. Not a problem.
So Richie Goodacre is asking, I don't know if you ever heard of this video game, but he said you should make a Hello Neighbor movie next. Have you ever heard of that?
I don't know video games. I'll look it up. But in terms of what comes next, the writers and Josh and I were already percolating possible sequel ideas or extensions in case Shudder likes it enough to do more. Because the ending, way more weird stuff could come down. That's all I'll say because nothing's official. But, put that energy out there. If you guys really like this, leave those reviews and like get the buzz, get the numbers up. Because if we get to do more, you guys haven't seen but a 10th of what the Destroy All Neighbors like extended world and mythology could be. It's very exciting.
Oh yeah, and I totally said like I could see this as a new franchise and it working really really well. So
Destroy All Neighbors, Destroy All Neighborhoods, Destroy All Cities. Destroy All Worlds. Who knows?
Hey, I know you say you're not big on video games, but when I saw the title "Destroy All Neighbors," it kind of reminded me of the video game "Destroy All Humans."
A lot of people thought that was the reference. Yeah. No, for me, I'm riffing on Destroy All Monsters because I'm a huge Godzilla head.
Oh yeah.
But
absolutely.
And then there were even some people who were like, "Oh, are they riffing on Destroy All Vampires, the comic book in the store that the Frog Brothers liked in The Lost Boys?" That was just another delightful coincidence. For me, it's all about Godzilla.
Oh yeah. Oh dude, the new Godzilla. Oh, that was also.
I saw that at the Chinese theater IMAX, like front row. It's amazing. Yeah.
It's so good. Zaire Shelton, a really good friend of mine, says, would you ever consider exploring other rock genres such as punk and metal / heavy metal? He's a he's a big rock head. So I watched this with him and he loved it. So yeah.
Let me tell you this. So again, prog isn't even my favorite type of music, but I love punk. My uncle was the original manager of Bad Brains back in the early 80s in Washington, D.C. So if we get to do more, I would love like a version of Bad Brains to come into contact with William and like hate his prog rock. We could have like different, people. And again, my favorite band is Sparks. Can you imagine getting like a spoof of Sparks, like these like awkward art farts and they're like being pestered by skeletons? Like we could do, good Lord, if this was a series, every episode could be a different musical battle or something. Like, hell yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Shudder greenlight this as a series so we can get every
Right.
so we can get each one different. So Andrew Long is asking, because this movie was so weird and out there in the best ways possible, were there any weird or dark elements of any draft that got scrapped? And can you say
Yes.
one?
So my initial drafts all those years ago, I was writing those during dealing with the actual neighbor driving me nuts all night, and all of that kind of filtered in. The original script was darker, it was bleaker, it had a more slow molasses insanity. Jonah's character would have been dealing with the corpses more. We would have reveled in the filth and the darkness. It was more disgusting and less funny. One of my favorite characters that didn't end up in this version, but maybe will come in later, is the homeless character. Originally had a cat that followed him around all the time, and the cat accidentally got killed as well. And William, the character William, was so sad he took the cat corpse in, and it, kind of in his head became like a kind of skeletal cat corpse puppet a la Reanimator. And the cat was named Mr. Meow Man. And I like the idea of a character saying Mr. Meow Man a lot. And he ended up being kind of his writing partner as he developed his creative ideas. It was like, oh, Mr. Meow Man, I don't agree with that. And so.
Mr. Meow Man.
Also, yeah, it was a joke on, the whole screenwriting book is Save the Cat. So my first script, we kill the cat. Duh. Dumb joke, but I like it.
Yeah. I mean, hey, y'all, yeah, I didn't have any. This is one of the few horror movies I've seen where there was no animals.
Thank you. So that's
that
another thing which I'm glad of. We introduced animals, we introduced the pigs, and they survive. Because I think it's kind of a cheap trick to kill animals for shock. Kill humans all you want. That's not a problem. But I like animals. I like the pigs are cute. Absolutely. I love the idea of the pigs surviving, but they eat their dead. Well, you've seen it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Andrew's asking, like, besides the horror genre, which I know you're gonna keep on doing, like, what other kind of genres are you interested in tackling?
I just like the extremes of the human experience. All my scripts are genre in one way or another. Some are more psychological, some are more psychosexual. I'm currently working on the end of a first draft of a script based on the true story of the 19th century German inventor Joseph Faber, who created a singing talking machine called the Euphonia that he could play like a piano, but each key created wind that came out of a voice box, right? And he wanted to humanize it, so he added a rubber woman's face to the end of his machine. And instead of making it seem nicer, everywhere he went across the world with it, it scared the shit out of people. He inadvertently had created the first recorded example in human history of the uncanny valley effect. So I'm doing this crazy-ass 19th century script about that. I like the idea of doing a biopic not about an inventor who got it right, but about an inventor who got it wrong. So
yeah, man, I'm down with that, and I'm down with any kind of idea that you do going forward after this.
I appreciate that.
And so I guess the other question that I wanted to ask you is, for any of those who are looking to get into writing and such like that, because I know, like, for me, with my process, I get a lot of times where I'm just stumped and I don't, and I'm like trying to write, and then just the ideas are there and they are in my head, but then putting them on paper is what's hard. And so do you have, like, any advice to anyone out there who just wants to become a writer?
It's difficult because you'll get a lot of these like hustle vibes people online, especially on Twitter, or like, if you're a writer, you got to write every day. You got to wake up at the crack of dawn and start writing before you take your first shit. You know what I mean? To them, I say, fuck off. Writing has to be creative. If you're not feeling it, like if you try to write and you're not feeling it, you're going to hurt your brain. My goal, if I go out to a coffee shop to write, my goal is to write 5 pages. That almost never happens. But if I have a little goal in my mind, whatever I write, even if it's only a page and a half or 2 pages, that's better than nothing. So I say set a little goal and try to work to it. But also, if it's not coming, don't kick yourself. Everyone else can do that. The reality, life will put you down. So don't put yourself down, because this is inherently a tough, creative, obsessive thing. It's schizophrenic in a way. You have to have enough ego to believe in yourself, but at the same time, you have no idea how any of this is going to land. And I say that from experience as someone who, look, when it takes a decade to get your first feature made and you live in LA and a lot of your college mates are literally lords of filmmaking doing awesome stuff, you feel crummy. But if you can push through that, I don't know. That's what I did. And I feel good now, and I'm happy to have a film out that is really insane. And this is the sort of film that if I had seen this as a kid, I would have lost my brain. So
Oh yeah. Oh, trust me. Like if I would have seen this as a kid, I would have wanted the action figures on the shelf of Vlad and all the.
There might be some. I don't know about action figures or chefs. There will be a Blu-ray physical release of this eventually, awesome. And I think there's slight rumblings to try to get a limited edition vinyl of the soundtrack. That could take a long time though, but they're trying to do that. And I think there might be like limited edition. I mean, all the characters are so cool looking. If there are any toy designers or pin designers out there, reach out. Let's just like get pins and little vinyl toys and stuff. Let's get crazy posters. I think it would be a very fun thing to do.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with like the poster artwork too. Like I would just love to put that on my wall or something like that.
I know they made some posters. I didn't get one yet. But they're definitely starting to make some stuff, and it's exciting. Yeah, that poster art is so good. Oh my God. Like if you've seen the poster and you've seen the trailer, you know what the film is. Like they've Shudder is incredible at marketing, I think, in general.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know if you're, well, actually, I saw that you commented under their review, but I have some good friends of mine, Sinister Cinema Reviews. They reviewed this film.
I think I remember theirs.
Yeah, they because and they were talking in their review. They liked it a lot too, but they were saying there are some people who would just completely say like, we don't want any comedy in our horror whatsoever and all that stuff. And they're like, so saying, well, if you're that way, then just don't watch it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
to them I say, to them I say, stay in your lane. The lane that consists of 99% of all horror movies. Like,
yeah. And there is part of me that as I was watching it, I so wish I could have like seen it in a theater because just the way it was like, I
will say this, it looks great on the big screen. The fact it got an limited Alamo Draft House is great. There's a special screening of it in San Francisco this weekend through the San Francisco Sketch Comedy Festival. Ooh. And beyond that, we're trying to get some special screenings. We want to go on tour with this. Like, how cool would it be if we like travel America and the world, and maybe we get Man to play music beforehand, or Jonah does some comedy, or Alex does a monologue, and then we play the film. The cinematography is so cool, and the effects are so good. It looks great on TV. Shudder's compression rate or whatever, like they really have upped their game. Things look pretty damn good on it, but big screen with a crowd, that energy, it's unbeatable.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so whenever y'all are going on tour, just remember, come to Virginia. So then that way
I would hey, we were talking before. My mom's from Virginia. I'd love to go back. I'm a big fan of Mothman. You know, maybe we could play Point Pleasant. Maybe we could project it onto the shiny silver ass of the Mothman sculpture and like really get some weird ass shit going on. Like, let's go on tour.
That'd be great. But yeah, thank you so much for
having me.
For agreeing to come on to this interview. For any of y'all who have not seen Destroy All Neighbors, it is an utter blast, great time. Y'all can watch it on Shudder, or if y'all don't have Shudder and y'all have AMC Plus, you guys can also watch it on there too, because that gives you a free Shudder subscription. So they're definitely watch this if y'all are into wacky, just fun, comedic horror like Evil Dead.
If you could put up with how silly I am in this interview, you'll like the movie. And if you think I'm an overbearing weirdo, then goodbye.
No, man, I this is definitely not going to be the last time I have you on the channel, because you have been a blast, and
have me back anytime.
Your
I
energy
love talking.
And me were just I just absolutely we vibed really well. So this is great.
Buddy.
Thank you thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who was watching and
Oh.
who gave in the questions to me today to ask you.
Yeah, that's really cool that
Yeah,
people are watching this live and asking questions. Honestly,
absolutely.
we got more questions here than sometimes at Q&A sessions at screenings, which is awkward. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so yeah, that'll do it for this interview, guys. But I appreciate all of y'all for being here, and I appreciate you, Charlie, for being here as well. And I cannot wait to see what you do next. I'm sure everyone else watching here is very excited to see what you do next. So
me too. So
yeah, absolutely. That'll be it, guys. We will see you all in the next one. And until next time, stay spooky, my friends, and keep on watching those movies.